Altered Beast from Sega. Now, this game was initially released in the arcade scene and was later ported over to the consoles, the Sega Genesis and the Mega Drive in Europe. It takes place in a Greco-Roman setting and plays more like a beat-em-up with some co-op. Now, the version I want to talk about is the Sega Genesis version. It's the one I grew up with and was one of the first games I played on my Sega Genesis. A lot of people believe that this is a much more inferior version compared to the arcade version, and the reason why is because the sprite quality is not up to snuff, as well as the audio cues that made the arcade version so unique aren't as good in the console version. However, the parallax scrolling in the console version, both on the Mega Drive and the Sega Genesis, is a little bit better, as well as some other little technical feats that make the console version a lot more preferred for some people. You play as a centurion that's tasked with actually saving the daughter of Zeus, Athena, from the demon god Neph, the lord of the underworld. You do this by fighting a variety of different beasts, monsters, zombies, and all kinds of crazy kind of entities and beings from the Greco-Roman world and mythology. You do this also by gathering 3 spirit spheres that allow you to turn into what's called the Altered Beast, a supernatural being that has the ability to fire magic from its hands, as well as do all kinds of crazy neat abilities while you're fighting monsters and trying to save Athena. You could turn into a variety of different beasts, including a wolf, a dragon, a bear, a tiger, and also a golden wolf towards the end of the game. Each of the different types of beings that you could become have different abilities, between firing fireballs, shooting different types of lightning and fire breath, and all kinds of different stuff that pretty much are used to destroy your enemies. At the same time, your enemies also have a number of different abilities besides the different legions of enemies that are coming at you. At the end of each level, if you've become the Altered Beast, or if you've gone through 3 sections of a level, you'll face a boss fight that is not as much more difficult than most of the enemies that you fight, but is unique in its own little way. Some bosses will fire its heads at you and all kinds of different things. And when you defeat them, you're treated with a different cutscene that shows off the story that's playing out during the course of the game. Now, overall, again, like I said, the bosses aren't too hard, but they can be sometimes a little bit cheap in terms of the hit detection, as well as also some of the different things they could do. Preferably, you want to be able to become the Altered Beast and fight some of the bosses because it becomes a lot more easier. You can fight some of the bosses with just your 2 initial forms and become powered up, but it's a lot more harder than it actually sounds. In some cases though, however, some of the bosses will be a little bit much more easier than normal, depending on what difficulty you actually play on, but it's not a hard game by any stretch of the imagination. It may not be as good as terms of looks as far as the arcade port is concerned, or the arcade version, but it's still an interesting game that everybody should play, especially if you're interested in a lot of the different types of games that were offered in the Genesis library, as well as any of the different types of games that came before Sonic the Hedgehog was released by Sega. If you haven't checked it out before, you can find it not only on PSN, but also in the Sonic Ultimate Genesis collection, that you can pick it up and try it out for yourself.